Welcome to Rooted, Stories of Entrepreneurship and Agribusiness, a podcast from Colorado State University's Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics. I'm your host, Lauren Chenarides. I'm currently an assistant professor of agricultural business at Colorado State University, where I teach a course on agribusiness entrepreneurship. In this podcast series, we explore stories of how people across the food and agriculture industry identify problems, create solutions, and build or improve businesses that make an impact. What makes Rooted unique is that each episode is co-hosted by students in the Agribusiness Entrepreneurship course, who bring their own curiosity and questions to the table. Their conversations with leaders across food and agriculture are a chance to learn, reflect, and share those insights with you, our audience of students, entrepreneurs, and change makers in food and agriculture. I appreciate your time and attention, and I'm excited to share these inspiring stories with you. All right, so I'm joined today by our student co-hosts, Katie and Lily, both agricultural business majors, and our guest today is Helen Siba. Helen is a first-generation farmer. She runs Artemis Flower Farm near Niwot, Colorado, and she's been doing this since 2014. This operation specializes in sustainably grown cut flowers. She sells flowers through wholesale to florists, a regional flower aggregator, farmers markets, on-farm workshops, and wedding floral design. In 2021, she joined the Treehouse Farm Collective, where she shares land with vegetable farmers and a vermicomposting operation, among others. We'll have to talk about vermicomposting.
Yeah.
She grows on about 2.5 acres and produced over 175,000 stems of more than 80 varieties of flowers in 2024. Helen has also served in the Peace Corps in Ecuador before returning to Colorado to begin farming. So exciting, and really happy to have you to the podcast, Helen. Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. I'm excited.
So I'll turn it over to Katie to kick us off with our questions.
Could you just give us an introduction to your farm and then a little background on yourself?
Absolutely, yeah. So just like Lauren said, Artemis Flower Farm is a specialty cut flower farm. So we grow everything from, we like to say, Artemisia to zinnias. And we really, we work on all kinds of different sales channels. So again, as she was saying, lots of different things lots of different places where we sell our flowers. I got started in flower farming at a small farm in Lyons, Colorado, which was also a wedding venue. So that kind of led me down the garden path. And I started that business there. We were there for 5 years. And then I went and worked at a large market farm, mainly vegetables, but I was their flower farm or their flower CSA manager and their just general flower manager. So we did big farmers market, big CSA, because that was 2020 when everybody, had to pivot from being at farmers market to selling, especially flowers, because flowers were non-essential. So people were selling flowers more through CSA. So we had a really big CSA. And then I was able to find this land with the Treehouse Farm Collective. I myself grew up in Colorado. I went to school in New York, though, and then I came back here. I went to school in New York for English, and then I came back here because I was really just missing, the sky and the horizon and stuff. And I started on a master's degree at CSU with the Soil and Crop Sciences Department. And I combined that with my Peace Corps experience. So it was a program called Masters International. So I was able to go to Ecuador, do thesis work there, and, some, very basic experiments. We worked with cocoa trees, cacao, and various other plants that folks out there, indigenous folks in Ecuador, were growing. And then I came back and I was interested in doing sex ed with Planned Parenthood, but I couldn't get a job doing that. And so I went to visit a friend on a farm, and I was like, yeah, I still want to do this.
Yeah.
And it was really, that was kind of where it started. I was growing vegetables at first, and then they offered, hey, would you like to do this flowers job because the person before me was leaving. And I said, sure, how hard could that be? Flowers. It's very difficult. It's very interesting, and that's kind of what's kept me in flowers. It's just how interesting and exciting and how much there is to learn about them all the time. So.
How do you think that, like, going from, like, Lion, such a small venue, to, like, a bigger farm kind of vegetable thing, to the Peace Corps, how have you taken all of that into your farm?
That's a really great question. I think that I really am able to combine a lot of the sort of larger scale farming practices with smaller scale ones. So, when we were on the farm in Lyons, it was 3/4 of an acre, everything included. So everything was hand scale. We were using broad forks and, small, maybe a tiller, but not often. And we had really kind of bespoke drip irrigation. And then at the bigger farm, we were doing all kinds of, really extensive agriculture. So like broad scale, kind of disking the whole field at the end of the season, and no permanent beds and different water sources and all of that. And so I think I'm actually really grateful that I was able to do both of those things, because I think it gave me a big toolkit, a big skill set. And now I'm able to use all those different skills whenever they're appropriate on the farm.
And then you mentioned the farm being sort of a collective kind of thing. Can you explain that for me?
Yeah, for sure. So the Treehouse Farm Collective it's just an LLC, and it basically is an umbrella that holds the lease with our landlords. So the treehouse leases from our landlords, and then we sublease to the individual businesses in the Treehouse Farm Collective. So we sublease to to Speedwell Farm and Gardens, Artemis Flower Farm, the vermicomposting folks, Vertiterre, and then the tool library, which is an operation that leases equipment to farmers at less than retail rates, which is great. And they have mechanics, and they do some custom work as well. So basically what that allows us to do is to afford the land where we are. It's a really, it's a wonderful, wonderful property that's really set up for agriculture, and it's 10 minutes away from Boulder, 10 minutes away from Longmont, so lots of great markets that we can serve. By splitting the land and the buildings and the infrastructure between all of those different businesses, we are able to afford it much better, and we were able to grow our businesses faster.
And then would you say, like, how have you guys been able to inspire each other or utilize each other being all in the same sort of facility?
Yeah. It's really, really special. My main farm partners are vegetable growers, and they just always have amazing ideas. They're looking and reading and listening to different things than I am. So it's kind of like you have these extra brains at your disposal. I mean, the folks in our collective are really smart. They're really passionate, and it makes it so much better to be a farmer when you have another farmer at your side doing similar work, dealing with the same problems, and just we are really able to support each other and say, I see what you're doing a great job, this is hard, let's do it together. I can offer you support, you can offer me support. We share all kinds of things, tools and all of that, but we share ideas, and we share just, hey buddy, you're doing a good job. It's really I can't recommend it enough if you have the chance. So yeah.
Yeah, that does sound just like a supportive kind of system.
That's great.
Do you go to markets together or sell together at all?
We did in the beginning. I asked Speedwell to sell some flowers at a small pop-up that they were doing, and that worked really well, actually. But really what we've done together is our farm stand, which is great because we have flowers at the farm stand, but then we also have veggies. We also have some other farms that come by and drop eggs and pork and beef. There's somebody who does soup with local produce. We have a honey person, and then of course we sell the vermicompost too. So that's the best thing that we've been able to do for selling together, because once, to have a farm stand that has all of those different products, it's really great for everybody, because some people will come for flowers, but then they see all the different things and they're like, well, I like that too. I like eggs, I like veggies, so it's great.
Yeah, you guys can play off of each other pretty well, which is kind of nice, actually.
Yeah.
Outside of that, what kind of markets are you in? Where do you sell? And, what kind of other specialties does your business offer?
So we, right now, we're moving toward more wholesale. And that's mainly because it keeps me on the farm more. It's much less work, much less, sort of post-harvest processing and all kinds of stuff like that. But I would say that for the main part of our time on this farm, it's like a third weddings, a third market, a third wholesale. We are kind of moving away from markets, and we are going to change our wedding offerings. So those will be more like DIY buckets rather than us doing the wedding design, which I still really enjoy, but it's stressful. It's really stressful to do weddings. And so we're excited to kind of just change it up and try and still make the same money, but do it a little bit differently. So
I have a follow-up question on that too. Is being in Colorado, a lot of flowers, a majority of the flower operations are not in Colorado.
Right.
They're in other states. How do you differentiate what choices you like the choices that you make in terms of what flowers to offer relative to maybe more traditional or conventional operations?
For sure, yeah. So a lot of flowers, 80% of the flowers in the United States actually come from overseas. So, and then the majority of U.S. grown flowers are grown in California. Some in Florida as well. But basically what we offer and what all local flower farms can offer, whether, in whatever state they are, is specialty cut flowers that are really different than what you're going to find in the grocery store. So we don't do standard roses. We don't do, football mums. We do heirloom chrysanthemums, but not the things that you find in the store. We don't do like alstroemeria, so things, baby's breath, that kind of thing. So really standard, really almost flowers that are like commodities. Yeah. We don't do that. So we do specialty stuff that is best when you get it fresh and it isn't shipped from anywhere, but you get it straight from the farm. So that can be things like dahlias, zinnias, lisianthus, celosia, cosmos, all kinds of things that are really delicate, but that make your florals look really alive, really, people like to say they look fresh from the field, or that I had a bride one time say, I want my flowers to look like I just rolled around in a flower field and came up with, that. So it's definitely like a different aesthetic than what you get from, a traditional florist. But a lot of fun, and we offer so much more variety too. So yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes so much sense.
Good.
How, what flowers do you typically grow the longest? What's your favorite to sell?
So a couple different answers to that question. Dahlias are our big crop in August and September. They take, we put the tubers in the ground in early May. And then, so they take a while to grow. Chrysanthemums are even longer. We'll put them in the ground in April, and they're not they're not blooming until October. But as far as what I like to grow all the time, I really like to have snapdragons on hand. So we grow snaps, starting in January, we sow seeds. Sometimes I'll even overwinter those so that I have a really, really early spring crop. And so snapdragons are some of my favorite. And what we do is we offer different sort of shapes of snapdragons. So you have traditional snapdragons that, what you think of. And then there are open face ones. There's double snapdragons. So we're able to offer those things that, a traditional florist who's just importing, mass quantities of things, they're just not getting that variety, even within the species of snapdragons, let's say. So those are some of my really absolute favorites. That's what I say when people ask me what my favorite flower is. And it's both because I love growing them and because they are beautiful and interesting and lots of different colors. And then actually locally grown snapdragons have a smell. And to me, they smell like jelly beans. Some people, they smell like other things, but you really lose that when they're shipped. And also a lot of the varieties that are grown commercially are they have other traits that were bred into them. And so the same way that A commodity tomato might have, it might ship really well, but maybe it doesn't taste that great.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with snapdragons that might ship really well, but they don't smell good and they don't have that same like an open face or the doubles.
Taking a step back towards your collective, obviously you're very focused on sustainability. Is everyone within that collective also focused a lot on sustainability? And how do you guys work together to kind of navigate that?
We all have really similar values around what we want to do with the land, and our landlords are also, it's really important to them that we are using sustainable methods. Both, we're not meant to use any herbicides or pesticides that aren't on the organic list on that property. That's also specified by the conservation easement that we have on the property that we have to follow. That's with the city of Boulder. We all came into it knowing that these were the things that we had to do and that there were going to be limits on what we could use on the land. But we're also really trying hard to improve our soil health always. And because we're an organic farm and we're not using herbicides, the farm itself is 17 acres. We're not cropping on that much land, so we're working on how do we keep everything mowed? How do we put animals on the land to graze and improve it that way? How do we get more compost? How do we do more cover cropping so that we're really taking care of that property without using a lot of herbicides and pesticides? So we work on that all together. In fact, tomorrow we're going to have our big kind of Treehouse Summit for the year, which is when we sit down and we talk about everything that we need to do and the changes that we want to make, whether that's with the farm stand or with, what cover crops do we want to get in before the winter, and then what are we going to do with the different parts of the land in the spring. So, it's I would say that was the biggest green flag that we had when we were going into business with these folks, was that we really all wanted the same thing as far as how we wanted to treat the land and how we wanted to use it. So I would say if anybody's interested in starting a collective like this, that's kind of the place to start, is do you have the same values about how you're going to operate? It doesn't mean that you're going to grow the same things or that you're going to have the same markets at all. I actually really value that we have separate markets and we are separate businesses. But having the same values means that you can be on the same page about what's important, and that's a really good place to start. So.
With that, it sounds like a lot of trust in that system. Is there any sort of contractual agreement between you guys, or is it sort of just word of mouth?
It is pretty much oral agreements, but we have been, since we started in 2021, we've been, chipping away at an operating agreement. And I think just by chipping away at that, we keep ourselves on the same page. Yeah. It would probably be wise for us to have a legal agreement between, the parties to the collective. The interesting thing is that because we're separate businesses and really the only relationship is that we're subtenants of, the Treehouse Farm Collective, really there's not a lot of danger, I don't feel like, by us being kind of associated in that way. It's yes, if somebody is no longer able to pay their rent, for example, that is just a breach of their rent contract. Yeah. And so, they would not be able to be on the land any longer. And then the rest of it is kind of we just have to talk to each other and work things out and say, okay, this is how much space I need in the greenhouse. This is how much space I need in the east field. The thing that you do with the BCS when you don't put it away properly really bothers me. Can we, work on that? It's very relational, which I value. And a lot of that, it's we could put that in a contract, but it's practice. It's all relational practice all the time. And so it's been good to have the flexibility, I think. But yeah, it'd probably be wise to like have some rules written out that we sign.
On that note too, so going into your meeting tomorrow, what are some of the big decisions that you want to talk about with your group?
Yeah, so one of the things is how much are we going to focus on the farm stand, and do we have some bandwidth to give it a little bit of a shine, because our flowers do really well at the farm stand, and some of the other folks' products just aren't doing as well, and I'd really like to see that change. And part of that is just that maybe the display needs to be a little bit different, or we need to have people be really on top of restocking their stuff in the farm stand. We need more signage. Can we do a work day where we can create some more signage to get people, because it's kind of like you have to walk to the back of our building to get to the farm stand. So some things about that, and then definitely, as I mentioned, where are we going to be where are we going to be next year, as far as where are we going to be cropping and what needs to be in cover crop, and then where are we going to we have like 4 sheep that we move around. We have some pigs that another member, the person that does the tool library, has been raising on the property, and are we going to keep them where they are? Are we going to have them back, or things like that. So it's really, kind of in the weeds stuff. But lots of fun to kind of imagine what next year and further down the line is going to be like. Another thing that we have to do, because we are the administrators of kind of all these subleases, is we have to make sure that there's nobody coming up for a renewal of their lease, that we need to, take a look at that, or find a new tenant, or anything like that. So making sure that we're planning for the future, of making sure that the rent is covered by all the tenants into the future. So all kinds of different things, but really broad.
Yeah, and a lot of strategic planning.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that's why, sometimes these meetings, we have them maybe twice a year, and so they need to be kind of big picture, both big picture, like where are we going, and also, kind of who's going to be in charge of those things as we get there.
So you can follow through, have a plan, and execute on it.
Yeah, because we need to make sure that everybody has, a defined role, so that things kind of, they do get done. We say we're going to do the thing, and it's somebody's job to actually do the thing, right? So
yeah, that's team dynamics and management is no matter where you are, whether you're in managing a cooperative or anywhere else, you're just always going to have to.
Yeah, it's a practice. It's a long, continually evolving practice.
Yeah.
With that, I wanted to ask about your own management. How many employees do you have within your farm, and do you like the number you're at? Has it made it easier or harder for you?
Yeah, it's just always such a big question, is labor, because I feel like what we balance with employees is, labor is always our biggest expense, and it also is our biggest, relief, I guess, because I know that I can rely, for the most part, on my employees to get things done when I'm not able to. And it gives me more, the more people I have on the farm, the more work-life balance I have. So I had a baby last year, and so she's 14 months now. And we decided this year to hire, so we've always been small, but we have 2 full-time employees this year. And in the past, we've had 1.5 or just 1 full-timer. And really this year, I know that I couldn't have done my farm and my job without the 2 full-time people, because we didn't have childcare, so one or the other of us was with the baby. And by us, I mean my husband and me, Nelson, so who also runs the farm with me. And so I like having 2 people on the farm, but I think that really where we need to be is 160 hours a week of labor. And we were ostensibly, or like in theory, we were at 160 hours between 2 full-timers and 2 owners. But of course, I think, between Nelson being with the baby and, me probably working a little bit less because I was with the baby, I don't think we were quite at those 160 hours, even though we still were working weekends for workshops and market and that stuff. So it kind of looks like next year we'll be at, I don't know, I'm hoping at least 2 full-time equivalents, and then that we will, it's always a balance of like, okay, then do we need to hire childcare? Does it make sense to hire childcare, or does it make sense for Nelson to do the childcare? What does that balance look like as far as paying somebody or not paying yourself? What's the difference there, right? So it's challenging. It's always challenging to figure out what that labor to profit ratio looks like, and what's best for us, for our lives, because we really like to make decisions like that holistically, where it's like, what do I want my life to look like? I want my life to look like I've got at least a couple of hours in the evening to spend with my child. I want some weekend time with my child. So how do I work that out, right? Even though my overall profitability might decrease because I'm hiring more labor. I love working with people. I love being not the boss, but I love, just hearing people's ideas, and because so many people come to my farm with a lot of different kinds of experiences in agriculture, or not at all, and so we get a lot of different ideas from our employees, and it's really important to me to do mentorship with them and make our work experience as good as it can be.
Talking about ideas, and one thing that you may have mentioned in the past is the workshops that you offer.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, yeah.
And how soon after 2021 did you start it, and sort of leading up to offering them now?
I think I didn't do workshops until 2022. I had done them in the past at previous properties. But yeah, I think I started in 2022 at this farm, and what we do is all kinds of different things. We do, grow your own cut flowers. That's like one of the first classes we do in the spring. So we'll do that in late March or early April to give people a good head start. And we talk about, different kinds of things: bulbs, roots, cuttings, plants, seedlings, starting your own seeds, and then the different kinds of things that flowers need versus vegetables, because a lot of people will have experience with vegetable gardening and not flower growing. And then our main bread and butter is our floral design classes in the summer. So we'll start with like a Mother's Day floral design class, which is super fun, and we have all of our best, tulips and ranunculus and anemones and really beautiful things that we can do for Mother's Day. And then we usually do at least one centerpiece design workshop every month in the summer. So it's very seasonal, and people will often do more than one, which is really fun because they know they're going to get really different flowers in September versus in May. And then we'll throw in, some wearable flowers designed, so crowns and wristlets and, floral necklaces and fun things like that. And then we'll do a hand-tied bouquet if people are interested in making their own bridal bouquet and things like that. And then in the fall we have dahlia digging and dividing. So we just had that last this weekend, Saturday. And so had folks out to dig and divide their own clumps of dahlias from the farm, because it's a really interesting process, and a lot of people struggle with it and struggle with storing their tubers over the winter. So that's a kind of a specialty one. And then we'll do dried flower wreath workshops, and I just love the workshops because they really bring people out to the farm in this way that feels really authentic, that they really seeing what we do on the farm, and it's so much fun. I mean, it used to be that I would kind of teach, I'd be really serious about the floral design, and try to teach people the rule of thirds and, the golden triangle and all this stuff. And it's just, people just want to come with their bestie and have a good time, So we've learned over the years how to make it just really good for our customers and give them what they want, and which is just really some snacks, some coffee, and play with flowers, and have a little bit of instruction and a little bit of help. Then one of the other things we do is our flower happy hour, which we do on like a weeknight, and just have people come and they can BYOB, and they'll bring their own vase too, and I just put out flowers, and I'm like, here are the names of all these flowers, enjoy making an arrangement with them, go out and cut flowers in the field if you want, and so that's really popular, and it's actually a really good way for us to sell people flowers, but also to get return business, because once they have fun with flowers, then they're like, ooh, I love flowers. I want to buy flowers from you. I want to buy more workshop experiences from you. I want to grow my own flowers, so I'm going to buy your dahlia tubers or your seeds or whatever. So I find that it's a good way to make relationships with retail customers.
Yeah, that's great. And that repeat business too, that you're able to track that.
Yes, absolutely. People really come back, which is fun.
That's great. That's so great.
How do you navigate the winter seasons and like preparing for spring and is there specific things you do to prepare?
Absolutely. So we spend a lot of time in the fall actually planting flowers to overwinter. We'll also, if there's some perennial plant that we need to plant to get ready for the next year. Often you'll plant perennials to flower the next season, so plant them in the fall. And then, of course, and that's, really just sort of the outdoor farm work stuff. But then what we do starting in November is I start making a calendar of everything that I'm going to do. So I like to set up our workshops first and just say reserve these weekends. But even before that, I have to reserve my vacation weekend, right? So I have to say I'm going to vacation. Usually it's August, because that's when I get the most tired and the most burnt out on the farm. I try to do a weekend in August that we're going to go actually leave the farm and, just get some perspective. We set out our calendar first. And then we can start filling that in with other events, or if we want to do, because again, we're moving a little bit away from markets, so maybe we want to do a guest appearance at a market on Mother's Day, or, in June when we have lots of peonies, or in September when we have lots of dahlias. We can sell lots of flowers that way, so I'll kind of map that out. And then it's, sort of, what do we need to do to to get those flowers growing? So we do a lot of crop planning in the fall and winter. We do a lot of numbers analysis. So I'll analyze my sales numbers from the collective where we sell, and any other, big sales outlets that I have. With weddings, I don't really keep track of like every single kind of stem that I put in every bouquet or anything, but I can track, what did I sell of each kind of arrangement? Like, did I sell, 400 boutonnieres or, 30 bridal bouquets? Where am I making money on weddings? So we'll look at that. We'll look at which flowers when we sell them to the collective, which is our local aggregator, which flowers are selling best, which colors are selling best, and then And really, I have to be doing that kind of throughout the year, because I have to order, let's say, ranunculus corms or tulip bulbs, like sometimes a year in advance. And so I have to kind of be on top of our, any color trends that are happening out in the world, and color trends that I hear from the collective or wedding florists. So, for example, this year, 3 years ago, you could not sell a yellow flower to save your life. But now everybody's like, where's the yellow? I want yellow. And I'm like, well, I didn't know you used to hate yellow. You still can't sell a purple flower to save your life. But, at least not to a wedding. No, not to a wedding florist. So, but yes, and to me too. And I'm really into hot pink these days. I'm like, hot pink, yes. Maybe it's my Barbie era. Like, yes. I don't know. Yes. But it's they do have to be on top of those color trends. And so we'll go back through all of those numbers and we'll say, okay, when I offered, 10 bunches of hot pink dahlias to the collective, only 5 bunches sold or something. So we'll kind of figure out those sales ratios and see where is it worthwhile for us to put our effort and our money. So saying this year I know that more yellow flowers are going to sell, so I'm going to plan for planting more yellow flowers, which affects my seed order, which affects my my crop plan and everything else that I'm going to do on the farm. But really it starts with what can I glean from the numbers that I collected over this year. So I love that. I really enjoy databases and spreadsheets and analysis. It's a lot of fun for me to kind of solve or answer a question by solving a puzzle with some math.
On the trends too, with flowers, how quickly can you respond to trends?
It is difficult. So like I said, sometimes we're ordering things a year in advance. And so we know that white flowers, blush flowers are always going to be popular for weddings. Although we do see, we got to kind of change our ratios a little bit, where instead of growing 50% white and blush, maybe I'm, scooching some yellow in there and peach and maybe a little bit of purple, you never know. So at least lavender, we get lavender. But it does take us some time, especially like if we have perennials. If people want more yellow peonies, that's going to take me 3 years to get more yellow peonies, right? Because they don't produce very many flowers until that third year. And so it can be tough. So you really have to, with the annual plants, you can be a little bit more flexible. But with those perennials, you want to choose classics. You want to choose things that are really, just going to last. And unfortunately, that kind of takes experience. So when you're first starting out and you're trying to choose the right perennials, it's hard to do. So, over time, you end up tearing things out and putting new things in and just trying to be as flexible as you can with, a living plant that's going to be there for, like peonies will be there for 100 years, right? So, so we try to, just make strong, classic choices when we can and, throw fun, cool things in there with the annuals.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break and Owen will join us to close out the podcast.
Welcome, Owen.
Thank you for having me. So what are some of your core values, and do you feel like the collective helps you achieve those, or does it make it harder?
We actually at Artemis spent a lot of time writing down our core values and talking about, what kind of sub-values we have around those. So one of our main ones is just respect, and that is about everything. It's about respecting our employees, respecting our own time, respecting the land that we work on, and of course respecting the people that we work with. And so that's a big one. Another big one for us is joy. So we really want to lean into what people love about flowers, which is that they really bring you a lot of joy. And so bringing that to our interactions with our customers, bringing it to our branding and just like everything that we try to represent. Those are some really, really important ones for us. So, and I would say that, yes, our collective does hold those similar values. We have a lot of fun on the farm. Our partners at Speedwell Farm and Gardens are just really bright, really fun people. Like, some days when I'm feeling low, I'll come into the farm and, my farm partner, Cody, is just like a silly, goofy person. And I just really, he'll lift me up just all the time. So that's an important value for them. And then, of course, respect for them has always been really strong in all the ways. So, and I think that we really reinforce each other's values in that we can sort of be examples of our values for each other. So when I offer my employees 40 hours of paid time off, I've noticed that Cody will kind of try to do the same thing for his employees. And that might be a different amount, but he tries to do the same thing and kind of just make our workplace like a really great place to be an employee. And then, we also have taken from them some of their cover cropping schemes, where it's like this is what they're doing to sort of respect the land that they're on. And we've been able to sort of reinforce that value by taking some of those strategies as well. So yeah, which is nice. I'm really glad that it's not harder to live our values by being in the collective.
That was smart to lay it all out before at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you have no plans of expanding the footprint of your farm, but do you feel like you can still expand the markets that you're selling to?
Yeah, so I do think that I can. We are basically always trying to sell more flowers. I don't want to say overproduce, but probably we overproduce in that we're not selling everything, and sometimes it goes in the compost pile. And so what I'd really like to get to is a state of efficiency where everything that comes out of the field gets sold and brings back money to the farm. And that's really, really challenging. I don't think we'll ever get to like complete, selling. But I think that we can be more precise about how we're selling flowers wholesale, and maybe more precise about how we are doing our workshops and how many flowers we're putting out for that. So I think it's more about instead of expanding our footprint or, growing more stems, it's about how do we actually get the most out of what we already have. Even though we have a tractor now, so we can, do more. We could do more if we wanted to. Flowers are still really labor intensive. So even if we had, let's say, a water wheel transplanter or something, we would still have to go in and maybe trellis those flowers or pinch them, So even if we did extend more extensive agriculture with the flowers, it would expand our labor by a lot. And that means that it, just once you start doing that, then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger because it has to. So what I want to do instead is just find efficiencies in where we are right now, and really make it so that we are working less and making more. And that's the challenge of where I'm at. And I think I can do that with the same footprint on the farm that we have. So
obviously farming is a very rewarding career. Do you think that's something that keeps you going on when things are hard or like you're tired, like keeps your passion alive for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking the other day, and I talk with my employees a lot about kind of the seasonality of our work and how, so from in the middle of the summer, we'll be up at 6 a.m. and we're harvesting flowers, in the cool of the day. And now, we start at 9 a.m. and we're mellow and we're, trying to take advantage of the heat of the day, when it's warm. And so living in that way is really, really important to me. And there are times in the middle of the summer when I'm like, I should not be doing this. I should just go get a computer job. I'll just sit on my butt and be comfortable, but every time kind of the season changes, I'm really grateful for the fact that I'm not doing that I get to be outside when the sun rises, or I get to be outside when the moon has been rising at like 5 p.m. These days. It's this big, bright moon. It's so good. And so, yeah, it is incredibly rewarding. It's really, really challenging, but I wouldn't want a career that wasn't challenging. And that's who I am. I think that's who most farmers are. Like, they want a challenge and they want to, just like be working hard and hopefully be working hard in a sustainable way. It's interesting because I want to make my work, easy, but I also don't want an easy job, if that makes sense. Like, I want it to be challenging. I like a challenge. I just don't want to be killing myself all the time. So I want it to feel like mentally and physically sustainable for me to be in that job. But yeah, it's incredibly important that it is farming, I think, for me.
And it's definitely rewarding to see people who are return customers, who enjoy your flowers, who like to come to your workshops.
Yeah, no, it's so great. A woman was at our farm stand last week, and she said, I come here every Friday after this appointment that I have because it's a treat for myself. I really love coming here and giving myself a bouquet for the weekend. And I don't know, that made me really, really happy. It's just, if you can affect somebody's life in a positive way every week, I don't know, there's nothing better than that.
Thank you again for sharing your story with us and all of the information, and thank you for having such a wonderful business. It's spreading that joy to other people. But yes, everyone should go check out Artemis Farms. They have a website. You guys are on social media?
Yep, we're at Artemis Flower Farm on Instagram. Yep.
Awesome. And yeah, thank you again, Helen, for joining us. It's
Thanks
been
for
wonderful.
having me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.